The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
Our guest today, Fady Asly, has already joined me in the studio of the Checkpoints. We'll be discussing the preliminary picture that we have so far and try to analyze what comes next, without the crystal ball, of course. Fady, welcome to the show and thank you for your time. Did you expect these results, the preliminary results that we are seeing?
I mean, I expected the results that were supposed to be published, not the results that were manipulated by the Central Election Committee. I was pretty sure that the Georgian regime would pull a trick at the last minute. I always wondered what was the trick, and obviously either they had hacked already the electronic machines and they used many other ways. So it comes as a big disappointment, not for me. I'm an international businessman. I can relocate myself in any country I want. But it comes to me as a disappointment for the Georgian people, for their aspirations, for their future, for their children, for their grandchildren. Unfortunately, Georgia has joined the grouping of failed states like Russia and Venezuela and Belarus. And it is very sad because Georgia had a lot of potential, but unfortunately, you know, greed and love of power and corruption has eaten up this government, and this is the result.
Are these results logical, Fady? I mean, do you believe that after a Russian law, after those protests in the streets, I don't know, stopping the Georgia from EU membership, after all these steps, the GD could become as stronger as it was in 2012, when during all these elections, all it would do was to lose votes?
I mean, it's obvious that the results are manipulated, and there is a very interesting graph that I saw a little earlier before getting into the studio, showing the historic coincidence of Edison Research exit polls with the real polls, with the real result, the final results of the elections. And you would notice that since 2018, in all the elections that happened, the exit polls of Edison Research were very close to the final results of the CEC. But if you look at the results of yesterday, the deviation is so huge that it is laughable. I mean, it's mathematically impossible. So it's obvious, you know, the elections have been rigged. And of course, the Georgian dream cannot have the same popularity today that it had in 2012. I think that they are even more popular, according to the CEC, to what they were in 2012. So it's a whole masquerade, unfortunately, very typical of a failed state in a banana republic. And we find ourselves today in a real banana republic. Now everything will, a lot will depend on the assessment of the international organizations who are watching the elections, mainly the OSCE, if they would speak the truth and not undermine their own credibility. They should not legitimize those elections. However, if they legitimize the elections, then there is not much that can be done.
Do you think it will be easier to provide proof of these manipulations, since these are already like partly electronic elections?
Look, it is impossible to it's very difficult, not impossible, unless you really have access to the machines, to everything, which will never happen because the Georgian regime will never allow any independent party to audit the machines. So it is very difficult to prove it. Yes, you can prove like carousel, you can prove like bribing, because all of this is documented. But hacking of the machines is difficult to prove. Several months ago, I had published an article myself warning about the fact that electronic voting is very dangerous and that the software and the hardware can be hacked. And at that time, the Central Election Commission had responded to me saying that that was not true, etc. But today it proves that it is true. We will see how it plays. You know, this time the stakes are very high. It's not like 2020. We will see how it will play, but it will not have positive impact on the business environment, that's for sure.
When you said that the stakes are high, not like in 2020, what do you mean precisely?
I mean that, you know, the future of Georgia and Armenia are at stake now. It's not only Georgia, because if Georgia, you know, doesn't make it to the EU, Armenia will have very little chance to do it on its own. So geopolitically, given what's going on in Ukraine, the war, the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the war, you know, the West are going to lose a pawn, an important geopolitical pawn, two pawns as a matter of fact, Georgia and Armenia. And that's why I'm telling you the stakes are much higher today than they were in 2020. We will see how it plays.
Yes, you mentioned business community. In which context?
The business, the business environment.
Yes, the business environment.
Look, the first thing that will happen, and you will start seeing it tomorrow, the National Bank will start selling huge amounts of dollars to kind of protect the lari, okay, to stabilize the lari. And in my own opinion, you know, it is said that in the past 2 months, the National Bank had sold about $400 to $500 million. We still don't know the right figure. But I believe that within 15 days, the National Bank will sell $400 million, because now there will be a total state of panic. You know, people with this kind of nebulosity where we don't know where we are heading and what's going to happen, people won't keep their money in laris. And in my opinion, it is quite logical for the lari to depreciate in the coming period. Then, you know, forget about foreign investment. No one is going to put a dollar in the, no new foreign investors are going to put a single dollar in the country. Most probably there will be sanctions slapped on the authorities for cheating and manipulating, which will affect the economy even more. And as I told you, we have joined the club of failed states, unfortunately.
What can make to turn the situation at this point that you are projecting right now?
Nothing, in my opinion, unless the Georgian regime decides to leave power themselves. I don't see, without another government taking over, nothing will change. You know, we're heading towards a very difficult period for Georgia, unfortunately.
What is the main message at this point to the voters, to the business community, to GD even?
Look, I will tell you, you know, I come from a country that is, has always been very turbulent, Lebanon. I'm Lebanese. And, you know, the business community has always thrived despite civil war and despite, you know, businesses will adapt to any circumstance. Now, of course, it's going to be more difficult, especially if there are sanctions. Then this will affect legitimate businesses, and then we will see the arisal of illegitimate businesses that are close to the government that would try to shortcut the sanctions, which is typical in every country that's under sanctions. So it's going to be a rough road. Some businesses will go bankrupt, new businesses will emerge, and this is how things go in difficult times. The reputation of Georgia has been shaken very seriously, and now depending on the assessment of the OSCE, we will see if the reputation of the OSCE will be shaken as much as the reputation of Georgia.
What are your expectations? Do you think it will come to the point when OSCE might declare these election results illegitimate?
You know, as a matter of principle, I don't trust international institutions. As a matter, this is my personal philosophy. You know, those are bureaucrats who don't give a damn about anything that's happening, that are getting paid their salaries, and that don't want headache. They don't want to be in the middle of a tug of war or a middle of confrontation. So I don't know. I mean, they might legitimize the elections, which wouldn't surprise me because they're an international institution. You know, I mean, they don't care. You know, they simply don't care. They don't want to have headache themselves as people, and that's why they would legitimize it, unless, of course, there are interferences from abroad. Let's see how it plays.
Yeah, if we are mingling with the crystal ball here mainly, what could be some of the scenarios that we might be expecting for Georgia's future development? You mentioned sanctions several times, and the highest stake is EU membership, of course.
We might lose our visa-free regime. It is a possibility. This means you and I, the honest people, will have to line up at the door of the embassies to get a visa. This is one thing. There might be rallies in the streets. It is a possibility. But the bigger possibility is to see violence. Violence, like real violence, like assassinations, people beaten up, eventually some public figure we know very well thrown in jail and arrested. There will be instability and violence, that's for sure. I mean, it doesn't take a crystal ball to read it. You just need to use your common sense. Because also what you need to understand is the psychology of people. You know, when you are in a democracy, and one side doesn't play by the democratic rules, you cannot expect the other side to keep playing by the democratic rules, you see? And that's why I'm telling you that I unfortunately foresee violence coming. Logic says this. It will be a very unstable period for Georgia that's coming, that will affect the economy, that will affect businesses, that will affect the reputation of the country, its future aspirations. And we will be put in the freezer for some time till there will be some geopolitical changes that would affect us positively, and then we will see what will happen. But meanwhile, you will have a totally wasted generation. You know, those young people who are between 20 and 30 today and who have their future ahead. Either they're going to emigrate, or they're going to waste their future by being here just waiting for something to happen without anything happening.
Do you think, does this picture have any other side that might be brighter, that maybe me and you do not see?
Yeah, you get used to pain. You get used to pain. That's the bright side. Yeah, you know, then you know, if you're married, you see that the marriage is like an easy thing compared to this. I mean, you know, you will always see a bright side. You'll always say, thank you, I'm alive, I'm in a good health. Thank you, you know, I'm on a salary that is okay. You know, your priorities will change. You see, you will look more into your own self, into your family, into your thing, and you will forget about democracy and big titles and the EU and all those things. And you will be like during Soviet times, where, you know, your personal happiness and your little circle around you, you know, is very important. And that the dictatorship outside, you live with it and you don't care. You know, you play by the rule of the games. This is where we are heading.
But do you think there will be room for that? Because the dictatorship now and dictatorship back in the Soviet times, these are probably two different dictatorships. And do you think Georgia has resources, like financial, economic, whatever resources, to have this dictatorship, to kind of like maintain and to feed this dictatorship? Yes,
you know, I mean, you will have a kind of nomenclatura close to the Georgian dream who exists since years already, you know, the same business people around the Georgian dream who are making money. then you will have a shrinkage of the middle class even more. And then, you know, the poor people will remain poor for a very long time. And, you know, those poor people have been poor since the Shevardnadze's time. And for them, nothing will really change except suffering. Then the Georgian dream will give more money to the poor, you know, like subsidies, social programs to keep them like kind of, instead of raising everyone up with high salaries, everything, they will keep on subsidizing with social program those poor people to keep them kind of happy with 5 kilos of potatoes and tomatoes and 20 laris and yeah.
Do you think there could have been more effort not to have this type of results? Do you think?
No, what can you do? You know, you have a man who controls every single state institution, from the prosecutor office to the courts to the ministries to everything. Okay, what can you do? You as a citizen, okay? You can go to court, you can file a complaint at the prosecutor, you can go complain to anyone. You have to just take whatever comes on your head. There is nothing. I think that the opposition played it very well. They did their utmost, and they have proven that the majority of the Georgians don't want the Georgian dream. This, everyone knows it. What the official figures, they're total bullshit, okay? No one believes them, okay? No one believes them. So it doesn't matter. We are jailed under the Georgian dream by force, by a dictatorship. It's a dictatorship. I mean, whoever says the Georgian dream is not a dictatorship is an idiot, okay? It's a dictatorship. So we have to live under this dictatorship. There will be more curbing of freedoms in the coming period. People who speak like me probably will be beaten up in the street, put in jail, whatever. It will happen, okay? And we have to brace for it. It's a dark period for Georgia that's coming. For Georgia, not for the Georgian dream nomenclatura. It will be a golden period for them because they will be wealthier and more prosperous with their families themselves. Yeah, but for Georgia, it is a dark period.
I don't want to believe in that.
You have to believe. If you don't believe in this picture, you cannot change
I think
it.
Maybe. Thank you so much.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.